time is it?
7:15.
I'll take my tablets.
Hiya, Walt. Mwah. Sorry, I didn't just in the chat because I couldn't get the chat up. Yeah, that's better. This thing is driving me crazy. let's see if I can make some of the trains. Season 5, episode 3.
Blue haze, really, but we're uncertain as to what happened. But that is how the scene was set for this particular moment.
You know your jobs, you know what you gotta do. Why do I have to keep coming to you?
At 9:20 p.m., Dr. Weiss would approach Huey Long for the third and final time. The revisionist historians who are convinced that Carl Weiss did not kill Huey Long believe it happened like this.
First thing in the morning, and this is the last time I'm doing your job for you. You understand me?
Mr. Long, I've got to talk to you.
Will you leave me alone, you little pissant? He shot me! He shot me!
Huey Long was taken to a nearby hospital. Despite his...
Inclined anybody to believe that he had this on his mind. I think it was altogether incomprehensible that he could have been the perpetrator of this crime.
No one disputes that Carl Weiss owned a gun, a .32 caliber pistol which he kept in the glove compartment of his car. However, Ed Reed believes that he has uncovered evidence that Huey Long was not shot by Carl Weiss's gun. The discrepancies can be traced back to the operating room.
Feel something here.
The official version makes no mention of a bullet being retrieved from Long's body. But Ed Reed has heard a conflicting story from a relative of one of the surgeons present.
All right, got a bullet here. It looks like about a .38 caliber, wouldn't you say, Dr. Long? All right.
During the operation, there was a .38 caliber bullet removed from Huey Long. This is significant because Carl Weiss was alleged to have been carrying a .32, but the bodyguards were carrying 38s and 45s. So therefore, if a .38 was removed, and I believe it was, then that could not have come from Carl Weiss, or his gun, certainly.
According to Reed, a second bullet was found while Huey Long's body was being prepared for burial. The mortician in charge told Reed he was visited by Dr. Clarence Lorio, a close friend of Long's who was one of the surgeons who had operated on him.
Merle, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside for just a moment while I interrupt your work here for just a moment.
What are you planning to do, Clarence? Clarence, this is highly unethical.
Just
What
bear
is
with
it
me
that
for a moment, Merle. Just bear with me.
What are you looking for? My God. Is that a bullet?
As the mortician said, he rooted around and finally came up with a spent slug. And the slug was described to me by the mortician as being about as big as the first joint on your index finger. And if you conclude that we're talking about 32s, 38s, and 45s, then would have to be a 45, which would have had to come from a bodyguard's gun, because that was the type of bullet that a lot of the bodyguards were shooting.
To further support his conclusions, Ed Reed believes it is highly unlikely that anybody other than one of the bodyguards could have gotten into the state capitol with a gun that night.
The cat food's on offer again as well.
Everybody who had a badge working for the state of Louisiana was up at the Capitol that night. The place just crawled with them. How in the world could Carl Weiss come past 100 security people and nobody would frisk him, or nobody would notice the outline of a 7.65 millimeter gun in a Palm Beach suit?
Within half an hour of the shooting, Dr. Weiss had been tentatively identified as Long's assailant. Weiss's brother Tom Ed and cousin Jim heard the rumors and proceeded to the Capitol. they still had no idea that Dr. Weiss had been killed.
Them arches go that way,
Is this
don't
Carl's
they?
car?
His bag's here.
You have the keys?
My dad's got a set at the house.
Let's go get him.
You having a nosy? You being nosy?
When Tom, Ed, and his cousin went back to the Capitol to try and find the car so that they could unlock it and drive it back home, the car had been moved.
He was just here not a minute ago.
I'm not going crazy. Let's go around back.
And they found the car on another side of the Capitol building. When my Uncle Tom finally did open the car and go through the interior, he found that my father's instrument bag was open and in some disarray, whereas normally it would be packed in a very orderly fashion.
Somebody's gone through the bag.
Carl would never leave his stuff like this.
Weiss's brother and cousin also discovered that the doctor's gun was missing from the glove compartment. To this day, no one can be sure who removed the gun from the car. However, Eloy Sayuk, a security guard at the state capitol that night, told Ed Reed that it was someone other than Carl Weiss.
One of the bodyguards, who is now dead, as all the rest of them are dead, he told me that he felt that that gun was a throwdown gun, that one of the bodyguards had gone out to the car that Carl Weiss had driven up in, had gotten that pistol, and had thrown it next to the body.
Senator Long, can I just have a moment with you, please?
Reed believes his theory is bolstered by Weiss's own actions inside the Capitol.
If Carl Weiss was actually at the state capitol to kill Huey Long, he had a perfect opportunity that passed. Huey Long had his back turned to Carl Weiss. It would have been very easy for Carl Weiss to shove his pistol up against Long's body, emptied out the magazine, and then made his escape. Because of the rumors that had been flying that there would be an attempt made on Huey Long's life that night. Because of that, fuses were very, very short. Something that happened that night, perhaps Carl Weiss hit Huey Long, perhaps he just moved too fast, and I think the bodyguards, who were without any training whatsoever in security, I think they overreacted. I think the bullets that entered Huey Long's body were the bullets that came from the bodyguards' guns.
Ed Reed offers up what he believes is one final piece of evidence. By all accounts, when Huey Long was admitted to the hospital, his lip was bleeding.
Your lip, Huey. That's where he hit me.
Was Senator Long referring to his encounter with Dr. Weiss? According to an affidavit sworn to by one of those present, he most definitely was. In hindsight, there seems considerable doubt about who actually shot Huey Long. But at the time, it was essentially an open and shut case. Anyone who attempted to investigate further was stymied because all the official records, as well as Dr. Weiss's gun, disappeared a few years after the inquest and remained missing for more than half a century. In 1987, Professor James Stars, a forensic expert renowned for his ability to unearth missing evidence, began researching the case.
In trying to find the gun and the state police files, I decided that the police were the prime suspects that should be looked at, starting from the top down. And I literally made a laundry list of the individuals with Louis F. Geer at the top of that list.
Louis F. Geer had been head of the Criminal Bureau of Investigation in Louisiana at the time of Huey Long's death. Geer died in 1966. In 1987, an investigator, engaged by Professor Stars, began an extensive search for Geer's will. When he found it, Dr. Stars' suspicions were confirmed.
There was a listing in the inventory of miscellaneous files listed as no value. Now, being a lawyer as well as a scientist, I realized that inventories of estates do not list items of no value. They certainly don't list them in this kind of mysterious way as miscellaneous files. And I said to myself, those are the state police files.
Another item in the will was not nearly so vague. Listed under Geer's personal effects was Carl Austin Weiss's gun.
Huh?
The Investigations of Dr. Starr's led to the discovery that my father's handgun was in fact in existence.
I
And
read
its
that.
location was
Yeah,
eventually traced to a
it's
safe deposit
the
box in downtown New Orleans, where
what's
it
it
had
puzzle?
been in the possession
Train puzzle.
of the daughter of the then chief of police,
It's this
Lieutenant
one.
Gare.
Acting on a court order, a New Orleans sheriff
It's
opened
not
the safe
easy
deposit
as it
box.
looks.
After more than half a century, Dr. Carl Weiss's gun, a gun which allegedly killed Huey Long, has been located.
Excuse me, 1 minute.
With the gun were several unused 32 caliber bullets and one spent 32 slug. Initially, many people assumed this was the bullet that killed Huey Long. However, ballistics tests conducted by the Louisiana State Police
I'm getting there
showed
with
that
it.
the
It's
slug
just
had not come from Dr. The discovery of the alleged murder weapon only served to deepen the mystery. If the 32 slug had not been fired by Weiss's gun, then where had it come from?
Oh, I
And
read
why
that.
had it been kept with a gun?
It's not easy.
Some believe that the answer lay with the official state files, which are also recovered. However, the Louisiana State Police
kiddies.
reviewed the files and determined there is
The
nothing in
babies.
them that changes the verdict of history.
It's my opinion that Dr. Weiss was the assassin in this case. We believe, from a law enforcement standpoint, that he
sorted
had
out
motive.
Stuff
We
down
believe he
here.
had opportunity. And we believe he had the means to do the job. And we know that he was there.
Yeah, doing a bit of a spring clean.
Spring clean ain't the word.
Throwing stuff out.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff. We've still got tons to throw out.
We'll just wait for the bins to be emptied.
Eh?
We just have to wait till the bins to be emptied.
Yeah.
Which is Thursday, but I take them over tomorrow night. And including my neighbours will take theirs over.
Got to go through these jigsaws and take them all back tomorrow so they can resell them.
Yep.
You stay there, Cat.
Yeah, so it's slow going, this one, because it's
Good girl.
I was at a little bit of a point to give up, but I'm not.
Because everything's blurred on it.
Yeah, which is not easy. But I'm figuring it out. Just not hope for the best. if one fits, then yay. Oh dear. Yeah, because this is how I got the bottom part sorted-ish. Okie dokie, Ruth Ann, see you later. If we do. Big huggles to you too.
The amount of time that may have elapsed since an occurrence really doesn't change one's desire to see the truth brought out, and I care probably more today than I did when I was a youngster about the truth concerning my father. If I were asked whether my father shot Huey Long, today I would say categorically no, he didn't.
Perhaps we will never completely resolve the controversy. Did Dr. Carl Weiss, acting alone, murder Huey Long? Or did Long's bodyguards go haywire, killing the man they should have protected? Update. A former superintendent of the Louisiana State Police has come forward with a startling admission that he believes Huey Long was killed by his own bodyguards. Colonel Francis Grevenberg claims he was told by 2 eyewitness state troopers that Dr. Carl Weiss was unarmed when Long was shot. The state troopers went on to tell a story that is nearly identical to historian Ed Reed's, that Long was accidentally killed by his own bodyguards who then planted a gun on Weiss. Grevenberg says he waited 40 years to come forward because the Louisiana legislature was packed with pro-Long politicians who would not believe him nor support an inquiry. The official position of the Louisiana State Police is that Dr. Weiss killed Huey Long. Next, the compelling story of a brother and sister separated more than 40 years ago. On a warm summer's morning in 1947, a housewife in Weed, California, took a shortcut home from the store through an overgrown field.
my God. Oh, you poor baby.
Hidden by the tall grass was a 2-year-old girl who had been severely beaten and apparently abandoned.
We'll get some help.
The toddler was taken to the nearest hospital and placed in intensive care. She had contusions on her head and face and lacerations all over her body. Traumatized and suffering from shock, she was unable to tell authorities what had happened to her or even who she was. The hospital staff began to call her Baby X. Today, the 2-year-old girl, known as Baby X, is a successful businesswoman and mother of 4 named Mary Jane Polk. Mary Jane has courageously overcome many of the hardships suffered during her childhood. However, she feels that the wounds cannot be completely healed until she finds her brother, whom she'd met only once 45 years ago. Tonight, Mary Jane tells her tragic story in the hope that someone in our audience can help.
Physically she'll recover, but emotionally I'm not so sure. She's been through an awful trauma.
They kept me in the hospital because they didn't know what to do with me. I was not able to communicate with the doctors and nurses, anybody that I came in contact with. I would assume that I was very afraid, and very afraid that if I did speak or do anything, then I would
Go on then.
be hurt again.
What's the matter? There. There you go.
No idea who Mary Jane was. They distributed her photograph to dozens of newspapers throughout Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. 2 weeks later, a witness came forward and identified Baby X as Mary Jane and told authorities that Mary Jane's mother was Lucille Medlin of Selma, Oregon. Lucille Medlin was staying at a logging camp in Selma. She had recently given birth to her 3rd child and was living with a new boyfriend.
I'm the sheriff of Siskiyou County. You live here? Yes, I do, Sheriff. How can I help you? Did you ask me? Answer a couple of questions for me here. First of all, have you ever seen this little girl before? You recognize her? No, I can't say I do. Excuse me, ma'am. Could I have you come over here and just take a look at this photograph for me, please?
When confronted with a photograph of her badly beaten daughter, Lucille Medlin could no longer hide the truth.
This is my baby.
See, we already have 2 children. We have more than we need, sir. But I didn't beat that child.
The boyfriend denied beating Mary Jane, but did admit that he had taken her to California, where he abandoned her.
Because there was going to be another child born, they decided that they needed to get rid of one of their children. That was their reasoning. They couldn't body train me. They couldn't, you know, I was an incorrigible child.
Deputy, please come over and cuff this gentleman. Lucille, I didn't do nothing. If you'll come with us, please. You and here in the automobile. Lucille, you gotta believe me, honey. I didn't do nothing.
The couple was arrested on charges of child abandonment and assault to commit murder. Lucille was allowed 1 visit with Mary Jane in the hospital.
Mary Jane? Hi, honey, it's me.
She brought along her newborn son, Jimmy. It was the first and last time that Mary Jane would see her brother. 2 weeks later, Lucille and her boyfriend pleaded guilty to all charges and were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Mary Jane, her 3-year-old sister Leoma, and her 4-week-old brother Jimmy became wards of the state and were eventually separated. Mary Jane initially went to live with her biological father and spent most of her childhood in foster homes. She married at 16. Today, she and her husband own a successful restaurant in Placerville, California. They have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. Several years ago, Mary Jane began searching for her missing brother and sister. In 1991, she finally found her older sister Leoma, but after more than 40 years apart, Mary Jane was unsure if she would be accepted.
I worried that she was going to reject me, and I was ready for that, and I was willing to accept it. It hasn't happened. It's good. It feels good. I'm proud of her. She's beautiful. She's got a good life. She's a good, nice person. Real nice.
I have two brothers by my adoptive parents, but I never had a sister, and so it was wonderful to meet with Mary. To know that she's there and know that I can pick up the telephone and talk to her if I need to or want to is wonderful.
Mary Jane and Leona have joined forces in the search for their missing brother. He was born James Gilreath on June 14, 1947, in either Selma or Grants Pass, Oregon. They believe that Jimmy was adopted out of the Wairika County, California hospital by a family from Oregon, and that his first name may have been changed to Donald.
I feel that the missing link is Jimmy, to make our family complete. And I would like to know where he is, what happened to him, what kind of a life he has, and like him to know that we're here, and that we're his sisters.
The night of our broadcast, Jimmy was not watching Unsolved Mysteries, but his adopted sister was. She immediately called her mother, who then contacted Jimmy. His name is now Donald Barrow, and he was just as anxious to meet his sisters as they were to meet him. 2 weeks after our broadcast, Donald and his family drove from their home in Fresno, California, to Mary's home in Placerville. Donald, Mary, and Leoma had not seen each other in 45 years.
Oh, we didn't think you were gonna make it. The one thing that I was concerned about is, was it gonna be okay? And I knew when I met him out of the car that it is okay. And I am so happy. We didn't think good, because we just thought of that as one.
I just think that seeing him and knowing that he's had a good life, that was something that Mary and I both were concerned with. That we wanted to make sure that he'd had a good life, and knowing that he did makes us very happy.
I'm not very good at emotions, so I don't know how to explain all of them that were going through my mind, but there were a lot of them. And there still are. Now I'm going to find out what it's like to be a baby brother.
And I still get to be the oldest sister.
And we all know I'm the middle child.
On our next Unsolved Mysteries, in June of 1992, two brothers and their girlfriends left Los Angeles and journeyed to the beautiful beaches of Mexico. But the weekend getaway quickly turned tragic when 29-year-old Mario Amado was arrested and then found dead in a jail cell just 90 minutes later. His family and friends convinced he was murdered. Join me next time for this intriguing case and 3 other fascinating stories in another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
It began as a weekend of fun and sun at a seaside Mexican resort. But after a heated argument with his girlfriend, Mario Amado found himself arrested for disorderly conduct and tossed into jail. Less than 90 minutes later, Mario was dead, under the most suspicious of circumstances.
Unplayable.
September 1978,
Need a
Tulsa,
6-gig card
Oklahoma.
minimum.
Chief J.B. Hamby jumps into the middle of a robbery attempt and a shootout erupts.
6 gig.
Moments
gig
later,
card.
Hamby dies as he recites the Lord's Prayer. Perhaps you can help catch his killer. A decade ago, the Texas oil boom made Ed Baker a millionaire. But in 1988, Baker's burned-out car was found in a remote rice field, and police said the body inside was Ed Baker's. Some believe it was suicide, but others are convinced it was murder. Join me tonight. You may be able to help solve a mystery.
You finished this one, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Take one. Right?
Yeah.
This one had pieces missing, didn't it?
Yeah, that's already got the pieces missing on the box itself already.
As long as we go back, we sell.
And they sold it to
In
us.
Oklahoma, automobile license plates are distributed through
Is it okay
privately
to
owned
do?
franchises called tag agencies. These businesses keep little cash on hand. Nevertheless, they have become tantalizing targets for thieves who traffic in
This one,
stolen
haven't you?
cars.
This had pieces missing.
One.
Just after 8 a.m. on September 1st, 1978, two men pulled up in front of the tag agency in Catoosa, Oklahoma, a suburb of Tulsa.
We'll do it after with a pencil. I'm sure you remember.
Yeah.
This a robbery? Get down on the ground, lady. Don't look at me. Come on!
We're being robbed.
There's your nightmare one. You didn't waste a lot of money though. Hey? Done this one, haven't you? Is there anything missing from there?
No. Not that I remember.
The only police officer in Catoosa was Chief J.B. Hamby, a 24-year veteran in law enforcement whose devotion to duty is well known.
JB was on call all hours.
Did you do that
Sleep,
one?
come in, shower, change clothes, right back out.
No, you didn't do
For
that
those
one, did you?
people that was on the wrong side
No,
of the
I
law, he could become probably their
That one
worst
either, did you?
nightmare.
No.
He was relentless.
Did that bleeding one?
Yeah, that bleeding door.
Hey, get out of here!
Alright, as long as they can resell them, they can. Not done that one yet. That one's completely incomplete. It's got no edge pieces at all.
Yeah, that's why I thought I'd take that one back, I think.
You can't get out for it. This was complete, wasn't it?
Yes, that's complete.
There's a hole in the box.
Yeah, that one with that one there.
Eh?
That one's got 3 missing. That was the one that I showed.
Yeah, well, you can write on them.
I'm sure I've got some other pictures.
Yeah, well, we can all go back anyway. Get rid. That, you've not done that, you've done that. Yeah, you did that fucking thing, didn't you? And that one. You did that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did that one.
Friggin' boat, and that one.
And that one, yes.
Is a pain in the butt. So there's like, what, about 8 jigsaws to go back. So they can
I'll
resell
take
that.
4.
Well, hey?
I'll take 4 at first.
No, just take them all. All them gone. We've done them, we don't need them.
Right. I'll be right back.
Not me. I'm there anyway. That's weird. What's left then? 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. All that bit's on there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 9. You've got 7 there, what you've not done. Oh, 8. There's another one. There's 8 what has not been done there, so we don't need any more.
And then there's that one.
Oh, that box of 4, I don't know what they are. That's my fault, that is.
Yeah. I blame you on that one.
Alright.
Uh-uh.
Well, it was one is made my fault, wasn't it?
It was a mystery box. Oh dear.
Mystery box full of crap.
That you don't even know what they are.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun.
It would be fun, yeah. I agree.
Rounds ricocheted through the small store in a matter of seconds. One robber was killed, the other was hit twice, but somehow managed to escape. Miraculously, neither of the women in the tag agency had been hurt. Chief Hamby was not so lucky. He staggered from the agency, bleeding profusely.
JB attempted to reload his gun, and at that point he probably sensed that he was, gravely injured. And from there went right on into the laundry to get him help. He needed help.
JB, it's all right. Call the ambulance. JB, it's okay. It's all right. The ambulance is coming. Repeat after me, JB. Stay with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come.
J.B. Hamby died before he had finished reciting the Lord's Prayer. One of the robbers was dead at the scene, shot through the head by his own ricocheting bullet. The second robber was apprehended 2 hours later, while being treated for gunshot wounds at a nearby hospital. He was 25-year-old David Gordon Smith, the son of a prominent couple from Stillwater, Oklahoma. At first, Smith thought he was being arrested only for armed robbery. Instead, David Gordon Smith was booked on charges of first-degree murder. On June 15, 1979, Smith began serving a life sentence in the Oklahoma prison system. Ballistics tests had proved that the bullet which killed Chief Hamby had been fired from Smith's gun.
Open 43!
It was so conclusive, beyond a shadow of a doubt. They had every bullet accounted for. They knew whose gun it come from. They knew where that person was at because of line of trajectory. They had everybody placed in that office and who had what gun.
David Gordon Smith was a classic good boy gone bad, the son of a respected university professor. This had been his first and only brush with the law, and he set out to become a model prisoner.
Smith was a good prisoner. He was well-liked by the staff that had to deal with him. He was also well-liked by the other inmates. And as he served his time and as his years grew and his behavior was excellent, he was, according to Oklahoma law, classified to a trustee status. And his job at the time was to monitor equipment at our lake.
Smith was assigned to live and work all alone at a small water pumping station. He was checked every hour by a prison guard. On 3 separate occasions, Smith was granted unsupervised furloughs for doctor's appointments. And on June 26, 1982, with the permission of prison authorities, he got married.
I don't think there's any way, by any stretch of the imagination, that he deserved any sort of lenient treatment. I think it's unheard of. I think he should have got the death penalty. I think he should have got maximum, hard time. I could have lived with that.
David Gordon Smith, you're serving a life sentence for murder of a police
In 1984, a full 10 years ahead of schedule, David Gordon Smith was granted a parole hearing.
What have you done while in prison to make yourself fit for society once again?
I've got a job since I've been in prison with a clean conduct record. I'm married, and should I be paroled, my wife would be a support for me. I've been going to church and have a strong faith in God.
I began to think how he would attempt to sell somebody that, you know, he was Joe Clean Citizen, you know. I think he seen that there was such an outcry from the public and friends and law enforcement that he was fighting an uphill battle.
I have recorded 4 nay votes in the parole recommendation of David Gordon Smith.
Smith failed in his parole attempt. However, he retained trustee status and continued his job at the lake.
Next inmate, please.
For more than a year, Smith remained a model prisoner. But then on October 28, 1985, a prison guard stopped for his regular 1 a.m. check of Smith's sleeping quarters. The model prisoner, David Gordon Smith, had made a clean getaway.
He probably walked from the room at the lake out to the nearest highway, a mile or so away, where Joe Beth, his wife, picked him up. They went into McAllister, which is a mile or so from the prison, and mailed 2 letters. We know that.
Authorities learned that 1 week before the escape, Smith's wife had closed out her bank account, sold her furniture, and borrowed $1,000 from friends. She told a travel agent she was going to Mexico. She never mentioned her husband. Then 4 months later, in February of 1986, David Gordon Smith was sighted with a female companion in Arkansas, just 90 miles from the prison where he had been incarcerated. The authorities were notified, but by the time they arrived, Smith had vanished.
I believe that David Gordon Smith is still dangerous today. He will do whatever is necessary to try to escape, again, if confronted by either law enforcement or by a private citizen. That's why I would recommend that no private citizen try to apprehend him, because I believe that he probably is armed.
I want to see David Gordon Smith serve his time. I just think it's one of the most unjust things that could ever happen. And JB lived his job as a police officer 24 hours a day. A very intense person that took his job extremely serious. For a man that stood up for so many things for so many people on the right side of the law. That loss can never be filled, and I just don't think it's fair.
When we first aired this story last October, we received more than 75 leads, but none of them panned out. However, one thing we have learned on Unsolved Mysteries over the years is never to give up. The story aired again in March, and this time in a small South Dakota town the right viewer was watching. He called the local authorities, and they immediately contacted the FBI.
One day following the airing of the David Gordon Smith case on Unsolved Mysteries, an anonymous tip was received giving us his location. He was working as a service manager at an automobile dealership in Spearfish, South Dakota. Agents of the FBI, local authorities in South Dakota went to his place of employment. He was arrested without incident, and he readily admitted his identity upon questioning.
When David Gordon Smith is brought back to Oklahoma, he'll go immediately into our system. He'll be classified as a maximum security inmate, and because of his escape, he will be in our maximum security prison for a long time.
I sometimes
There's a tremendous amount of relief.
Figure that out sometimes.
Equivalent.
With David Gordon Smith was returned to Oklahoma. Come on.
Long time.
Update. David Gordon Smith was returned to Oklahoma. Is now serving his sentence in state penitentiary He received the additional 4 years for escaping. I don't know, I think they might.
For thousands of American tourists, the breathtaking sunsets
I think
of
they
Mexico
might
have
do
always
that
been an invitation for romance, fantasy, and
a
adventure.
reason.
In June of 1992,
Because I had noticed on
Joe
that
Amado
a
and his younger
haunting,
brother Mark
they
left Los
changed
Angeles with their girlfriends. They were
a
headed
baby's
to
name.
Rosarito Beach, Mexico, a popular seaside resort 35 miles south of San Diego.
Yeah, well,
But their weekend in the sun
they
was soon
do.
disintegrate into a nightmare.
They have all this
The
free
next
stuff.
day, Mario Amado was arrested after a fight with his girlfriend. 90 minutes later, he was dead. The local authorities claimed that Mario had committed suicide.
They give him
say
free
it was
stuff,
murder.
and it's like,
Plain
well, he's a
murder.
convicted
and I knew that
felon,
from the
so
beginning because I know my brother very well.
I don't
They
get the
stole
system.
his life away from me.
I really don't.
And,
It's probably that
we're
like
gonna get to the
years
bottom of
ago,
this.
obviously, and things have changed, but it's just like here.
His family is not the first to be haunted by the vague details of an official investigation. In such cases, facts are few and clues are hard to come by.
Doesn't make sense.
However, Mario's
really
brother
don't
is
make
determined to learn exactly what happened to him during his brief captivity. As a result of Joe Amato's efforts, this potentially explosive case has sparked the interest of high-level government officials, including an American congressman and the President of Mexico. The Amato brothers arrived at Rosarito Beach just after 1 a.m. on June 6, 1992. They were staying at a condo owned by a relative of Mario's girlfriend, whom we will call Paula. Joe and his girlfriend, Debbie, eagerly accepted an invitation to come along. The two couples immediately broke out the tequila.
I says, well, what are we here for? To party. Let's have a good time. Everybody sat around and we started having our drinks, you know? And I guess it was later on about 3:30, 4 o'clock. I mean, I was getting kind of tired and I told Debbie it's time to go down. About 7 o'clock, we woke up and they were still up and they were bickering.
I want to leave now. I want to go home. She's driving me crazy.
Oh, Mario. Go to bed. Go to sleep, huh?
I felt very disturbed because I know Mario liked this girl very much, and he wouldn't have wanted to leave if it wasn't something serious that he felt that he just didn't want to stay.
By late the next morning, Mario and Paula had apparently patched up their differences.
That was the last time I saw him alive. But I can still remember, like, expression on his face. He seemed very happy, like nothing was wrong.
That afternoon, Joe and Debbie took a romantic drive along the coast of Baja California. They assumed that Mario and Paula were getting along fine.
I can't believe it. This is your idea of a fun time out here. What are you talking about? I can't believe this. Hey, can I have some clothes, please? Yes, I want my clothes. Get out. Thank you.
¿Qué está pasando aquí, muchacho? ¿Cómo te llamas?
My name is Mario Amado.
Acabo de hacer una llamada que andas
No,
causando
I
problemas.
don't speak Spanish, officer.
Well,
What's
somebody
the
just
problem?
called me. They've been causing some problems in here.
Finally,
made a
look.
phone call?
Did you make
Can you get him out of here?
Mario was arrested for public drunkenness and disorderly conduct and taken to the police station. Mario was placed in a holding cell, but never formally charged with a crime. At around 6:30 p.m., Joe and Debbie returned to the beach house. They were surprised to find it vacant and the key under the mat missing.
Listen, there was some trouble here before. The police came.
A maid from the condominium complex explained that there had been problems there a few hours earlier.
Police came?
Debbie crawled through a window to get inside. Almost immediately, 4 police officers showed up, asking for Paula by name.
What's wrong? What's going on?
Looking for Paula.
She's not here.
Do you know what she might be? Is there something wrong?
No, we'd just like to ask her a couple of questions.
Did you try the bar down the street?
No, we did not. Continue, yeah?
Yeah, right next door.
Gracias.
And that's when Debbie really started getting suspicious, right about that time. She followed him down to the bar. She got in, put her clothes on and got ready and went right down to the bar, and they were looking for her frantically.
A little later, Mario's girlfriend does come just waltzing in the house, and like nothing was wrong. And we asked her, where's Mario? And she said she didn't know.
He's probably in some gutter somewhere.
Oh, some gutter. Real cute. Real cute.
2 hours after Paula returned, a group of detectives arrived. Joe still had no idea that his brother had been arrested.
I am looking for the brother of Vicente Amador.
Sorry, but we don't know Vicente Amador.
You don't know Vicente Amador?
My brother's name Mario Vicente Amado.
Yes, that's him. I'm Sergeant Tinoco. I have some bad news. Your brother is dead. Sorry.
What happened to my brother?
Perhaps it's better if you come with us. We should talk about it in my office.
The first thing that went through my mind is they made a mistake. And maybe they didn't make a mistake, but I was hoping they had made a mistake, and I was just in disbelief that this could be happening. It's like a nightmare.
Please sit down. I need you to identify some pictures here. Now, is this your brother?
The first thing I see is Mario laying on the concrete. His eyes closed, no shirt, just his pants. And the jail door, and then at that time he says, well, how could this happen? I asked him.
Why isn't he wearing a sweater?
That's how he killed himself.
What?
He tied it around his neck, and then he tied it around the crossbar and hung.
Where was this crossbar?
About 3 feet off the ground.
3 feet?
Was very drunk and very heavy.
Oh, come on. How do you hang yourself from 3 feet?
So I asked him, was there anybody in the jail to stop him from doing this? He says, oh no, they're all sleeping. He says, 4 guys sleeping at 5:30 in the afternoon? I was just couldn't believe that. Right away, I knew there was something wrong. And I says, well, how did he kill himself? Oh, with a sweater. And I'm going, no. You can't kill yourself with a sweater. From where? Oh, from the cell door. And I go, no. Right away. I mean, everything wasn't right.
Mario Amado died 3 months short of his 30th birthday. Joe Amado was forced to return to the United States without his brother. The Mexican authorities refused to release the body until after they had completed their autopsy. They would not tell Joe when that would happen. Within a week, a Mexican autopsy was completed. It listed the cause of death as a loss of oxygen to the brain, a result of Mario hanging himself. Joe Amado believed that was preposterous and contacted his congressman.
The Mexican autopsy confirmed the report of the jailers in Tijuana that Mario Amado had hung himself with his own sweater. When you take the notion of a report from a local foreign authority that a prisoner killed himself, it always makes sense to view that kind of report with some suspicion. This is the oldest excuse for a jail murder that's ever given, is that the prisoner hung himself.
As soon as his brother's body was returned to the United States, Joe Amado hired an independent pathologist to conduct a second autopsy. The autopsy concluded that internal injuries to Mario's liver were strong evidence that he had been punched in the upper abdomen. The report stated that in light of such injuries, quote, the victim would not likely have been able to hang himself.
Mario Amado was undoubtedly and most likely hung at that time with an instrument, not his sweater, but some other instrument, to use as the pretext for the obvious abuse and finally the murder that took place.
Ultimately, the Los Angeles County coroner reviewed both the American and Mexican autopsy reports. He determined that Mario Amado had probably been murdered. There is one other disturbing element in this case. The fact that Mexican authorities violated international agreements by not contacting the U.S. consulate as quickly as possible following Mario's death.
You start to see a picture of a cover-up starting to take place. The people involved in this incident did not want authorities coming quickly to the scene of the crime, and they wanted a period of time to elapse. They hoped that Joe Amado would forget about it. His brother was dead. He went back to the United States and dropped the whole issue.
They usually do it a very speedy way when there is no relative or friend when a foreign person dies. But when the family is there, their friends are there, I mean, they just do it by letter days after, you know.
Eventually, Congressman Berman contacted the President of Mexico, Carlos Salinas de Gortari. The President promised to reopen the investigation, and in January of 1993, the body of Mario Amado was exhumed for yet another autopsy.
The truth is going to come out of the full investigation that we are making with the American government, that we asked them to cooperate in the reason the witnesses and the evidence were here in the States. The truth will come out.
I'd like to see the people that committed the crime suffer for it, because we're suffering, and somebody's got to suffer also. You know, they're just not going to go. It's not going to go away. You know? It's just something that's going to be there, and I'm going to ruin their lives just like they've ruined mine and our family. You know, somebody's got to pay. You know.
When we return, the mysterious final days of a Texas oil millionaire. November 8th, 1985. In a remote rice field 20 miles outside Houston, Texas, flames ravaged an expensive Jaguar sedan. Inside, sheriff's deputies found a charred human body, so disfigured that even the gender was not apparent, so completely burned that its weight was reduced to 32 pounds. The car was registered to a millionaire oil well promoter from Houston, Edward Gerald Baker. Eventually, forensic tests indicated with near certainty that the body was indeed Ed Baker's. Ed Baker personified Texas in the 1980s. Powerful, bold, and rich. A one-time shoe salesman and insurance agent, he built a multi-million-dollar oil investment business seemingly overnight. Then in 1985, Baker's world came to a fiery end. However, even now, the exact circumstances of his death are disputed. Some believe he took his own life. Others are certain he was murdered. Incredibly, a few people even think Ed Baker may still be alive. Ed Baker seemed an unlikely person to be at the center of such a deadly puzzle. His company, Vanguard Groups International, was one of the fastest-growing businesses in the United States.
I watched him build that company from the ground up, and I think that he always knew he had the potential to have a very successful business.
Yeah, stupid.
And I think he tried his best to manage that business honestly and with a great deal of integrity.
Ed Baker started promoting oil well exploration in 1980. His timing was perfect.
$3,500 is your upfront investment here. You also sign a promissory
Houston was booming. After his first oil wells came in, Baker had no trouble selling his clever tax shelters to wealthy investors.
Okay, but here's the kicker. Here's the kicker, Frank. I'm going to guarantee 8 to 10 wells per package. The income from those wells is going to pay off that promissory.
People tended to trust him. He was acknowledged as a pretty brilliant strategist when it came to developing these little, tax shelter programs at that time. Now, the laws have changed since then, but at that time it was brilliant.
When Ed Baker founded Vanguard, his wife Mary was one of only 3 employees, and cardboard boxes served as their file cabinets. 4 years later, Vanguard sales had skyrocketed to $19 million. The flood of wealth prompted drastic changes in Ed Baker's life. In March of 1984, he divorced Mary, his wife of 10 years. Soon after, he began to indulge a taste for high-stakes gambling. Baker also underwent 2 facelifts, took disco lessons, and purchased a flashy new Jaguar. In September of 1984, Baker remarried, only to file for divorce 5 months later. Just 4 days after the dissolution was final, he married Sandy Hoff, one of his employees at Vanguard. All the while, Baker's financial empire was disintegrating.
Thank you, John. John, there is nothing to worry about at this point. I promise you there is nothing to worry about. The wells will come in.
At the time, Ward Boosie was Ed Baker's personal attorney.
In '85, when the oil industry hurt a lot of people in Houston, people stopped investing in deals that Ed was selling. And as it turns out, he was borrowing from a lot of his investors to sustain his lifestyle, always, I believe, assuming that he was going to be able to repay the people that he borrowed from the next group of folks. Sooner or later, there was not a next group of folks. He was looking at some serious charges from a lot of his investors. He was looking at, turns out, serious tax problems. It may have been very true that he was about to go to jail.
By October of 1985, Baker's investors were clamoring for money, but Vanguard was on the edge of bankruptcy. Baker allegedly arranged a desperately needed cash bailout from a highly suspect source.
We need to talk. Not on the phone, okay?
Then he brought in his private investigator.
I got the impression from Ed you're talking big money, such as millions.
Let me get back with you, okay?
And he thought maybe we'd have to do a little background on these individuals that he was preparing to have some financial dealings with in Florida, because he'd heard that he had heard that they had some sort of mafia connections.
What took you so long?
I took the back roads.
Are you all right?
Ed Baker seemed unable to reverse his downward spiral. On November 6th at around 7:30 p.m., he showed up at his ex-wife Mary's house in a state of emotional disarray.
Sit down, I'll get you a cup of coffee.
I was really kind of shocked because he was real pale and he was afraid he was being followed. And this was very unusual, for him to behave this way, and it didn't fit what I normally knew.
Now tell me what this is all about.
I really didn't want to get you involved with this, Mary.
He told me that he had received death threat letters at work within the past 2 weeks, and that day he had received 2 telephone calls at his unlisted home number telling him this is your day to die.
Who was it?
I don't know.
He was taking it seriously, that he was really threatened at that point.
Why don't you call the police?
Can't do that, Mary. The police won't do anything until something happens.
Well, don't go home. Rent a hotel room. Stay with me.
I can't do that, Mary. I have to be home tonight to take a call from Sandy. She'd be worried if I wasn't there.
And he got in his car and drove away, and that was the last time I saw him.
According to Sandy, her husband had sent her to Austin, out of range of the threats. Sandy says she spoke to Baker around 1 a.m. He was holed up in their bedroom and told her he had received yet another life-threatening call.
Hello? Baker, it's time to die. Who is this? Who is this?
2 days later, on November 8th, sheriffs were notified of the burned-out Jaguar. In the passenger seat were the charred remains later identified as Ed Baker's.
From the evidence on the scene, it appeared that the subject in the car had been shot. There was a burnt .32 caliber revolver in the right front floorboard, which would have been at the passenger's feet. When we opened and examined the .32 pistol, the cartridge underneath the firing pin had an indentation in it, like it had been fired. The other 5 shells looked like they had been exploded by heat.
Somebody obviously was trying to burn the car. It appeared at the time that it was a rather crude effort. We found 3-gallon cans of gasoline inside that vehicle and around that vehicle, more than enough to sufficiently burn it up.
As they were leaving the scene, investigators made another troubling discovery. About 1,500 feet from the car was a second body. A young man in his early 20s had been handcuffed and beaten to death, apparently just hours earlier.
We thought to start with it might have been a person that killed Mr. Baker and somebody killed him and shut him up. Our final determination, we found out it wasn't connected. We found out the boy that we found, the second body we found, was killed in a dope deal and just was dumped in that area. It happened to be a dumping area.
That same day, the case took another surprising twist. A letter from Baker arrived at the office of his attorney, Ward Boosie.
It said, "Dear Ward, if you are reading this letter, it means that I am dead. I've had some threats on my life. You've been a good friend to me. Please take care of Sandy and the kids and do what you can for them." And enclosed is another letter that I would like you to take out to Sandy and give to her for me.
In the weeks that followed, the fate of Ed Baker became the subject of intense speculation. His wife, Sandy, who today lives in Europe, was convinced that he was the victim of a mafia hit. An eyewitness told police that he saw a blue Chevy pickup truck with chrome rails and mag wheels speeding away from the field where Baker's car was found. The truck and whoever was in it have never been located. Although Baker told a number of friends about the threats to his life, law enforcement investigators believe he committed suicide. They learned that in the days prior to his death, Baker called his life insurance agents. He specifically asked if his policies would pay in the event of his suicide. One, valued at $500,000, would not.
I believe it's a possibility that Mr. Baker shot himself, committed suicide, and that he had an accomplice that set the car on fire to make it look like a homicide so that all of the insurance policies would pay off. We'll have a lot of people we find in a car commit suicide with pistols, and the pistols is always at their feet, and the pistol we recovered would have been at Mr. Baker's feet on the passenger side of the vehicle.
Sandy Baker refused to accept the idea that her husband had taken his own life. She hired an independent private investigator.
I think somebody was paid to kill Ed Baker. If you're related professional like a mafia or syndication type thing, I don't think so. I don't know why they would burn the car. This seems to be just somebody was paid to kill Ed Baker, and that's exactly what they did. Ed Baker did not commit suicide.
Baker's attorney, Ward Boosie, disagrees.
The letter I got said, "If you're reading this, I am dead." How did he know he was going to die that night? Unless he planned on going out and killing himself. I think Ed decided that he was about to probably go to jail and decided to get Sandy out of town so that she wouldn't be implicated. Said goodbye to everybody that he loved. Went out to this field that he knew about, set his car on fire and shot himself.
From what I know about fire, I spent over 20 years in the business. I don't believe an individual can pour gasoline on themselves, ignite it, and be able to stay calm and still enough to reach down and put a gun to their head and pull the trigger.
Homicide is a possibility, but also I feel the possibility that Ed could arrange something like this with a different body in that vehicle. Ed was a very intelligent man, a man that took in, as he told me himself, $66 million the last year that he was in business. And a man capable of doing that is capable of faking his own death.
Bob Gale and others believe that despite conclusive evidence to the contrary, Ed Baker faked his own suicide. are convinced that Baker fled to an unknown location, perhaps the Caribbean, to live in luxury on funds embezzled from his investors. Today, the fate of Ed Baker's become something of a myth in parts of Texas. It seems unlikely that Baker is still alive, yet one of his insurance carriers refused to pay death benefits without conclusive proof that he is dead. But if it was Ed Baker in the front seat of the Jaguar, did he commit suicide, or was he murdered? And if so, by whom?
What is this?
In 1957, 13-year-old Sue Scribner learned of a secret that her mother Callista had been carrying for more than 15 years.
When I asked her why she had been crying, she told me about having a boy and a girl twin that had been adopted. It's time I told you. I was really surprised because I was 13, and it's a shock to find out that you have a brother and sister that you didn't know about.
In 1942, Callista Scribner had given birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The infants were born with congenital heart defects, and Callista felt she would be unable to provide them with the care they needed. 3 weeks after they were born, the twins were adopted. Callista never saw them again.
The twins being adopted, it just stayed with her forever. She never got over it.
For 10 frustrating years, Sue Scribner searched for the twins. Finally, in 1990, Sue wrote a poignant open letter to the brother and sister she had never met.
And so elusive twins, I still search. Yet should my efforts end in emptiness, I have not failed so completely, for I've already found you once, years ago, chasmed in that deep indelible well, that safe place, our mother's heart.
10 days after we featured this story, Sue Scribner received an anonymous call from one of our viewers who told her that the twins were living in Orlando, Florida. Sue immediately contacted her brother and sister, whose names are Bruce and Barbara. The twins had no idea that they had been adopted and were shocked to learn about a side of their family they never knew existed. On March 15th, 1992, Sue Scribner met her brother and sister for the first time in her life. The joyous reunion brought together 6 of the Scribner children and their families.
The very first time I met him, I think all of our knees were shaking. It is emotional, but I think we've all cried enough tears, and we didn't need a lot today.
I think that my newfound family is wonderful. I think they're absolutely adorable. It's like we've known each other all of our lives, even though we haven't been around each other more than 5 hours.
You can lose me for another 50 years.
I can't wait to get to know them. I'm really very excited about it. And you have all these questions in your mind. Gee, what did I miss out on all these years? What were they really like as kids?
She used to be small.
I think everybody's going to get to know each other on both sides of the family. And for the country bumpkins like we are, it's like a blessing.
It doesn't really matter now what kind of life any of us have, because it's what's left that counts. We know where all of the children are now.
Tonight, the FBI has requested our cooperation in a matter of extreme importance. They hope that someone watching has vital information about a man suspected of taking part in the bombing of the World Trade Center. He is the newest addition to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Please, watch closely. By now, we are all familiar with the graphic images and horrifying details. On February 26, 1993, the explosion beneath New York's Trade Center complex killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. Thus far, 4 men have been arrested and indicted
Hi,
in connection with
Patrick.
the bombing, and a 5th has been charged with obstruction of justice. But another suspect, thought to be a major participant, has so far eluded capture. He is 25-year-old Ramzi Ahmed Yosef, who used an Iraq passport to enter the U.S. in September of 1992, seeking political asylum. Authorities believe Yosef may have been the roommate of the first suspect arrested, Mohammed Salameh.
Ramzi Ahmed Yosef was added to the top 10 list because he's been charged by a New York grand jury with participating in the bombing of the World Trade Center on February 26th of this year. He's 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes, sometimes known to wear a beard. Wherever he is located, he should be considered armed and extremely dangerous. It's really critical to bring him to justice for his participation in this crime for 2 reasons. One, the terrible nature of the crime, what it represents to American society, the first major terrorist offensive here in this country in many, many years. And secondly, because he is a key part of this conspiracy, and we would like to bring all the co-conspirators to justice.
Thank you for joining us, and please join us next time for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you're about to see is not a news broadcast.
When Patricia Tier Carlton awoke from surgery for a brain aneurysm, she found she could no longer remember her name, where she lived, or that she had 2 children. 8 times over the next few years, Pep would wander off without explanation. Finally, on the 9th time, she vanished forever. In 1976, Daryl Tacey fell in love with and later married an exotic young woman named Georgia Ann Boyd. After a series of strange incidents, including a high-speed chase by members of a biker gang, Daryl realized that Georgia was a woman of mystery, whose past would remain hidden even in death. And in Florida, a murder investigation has stalled because no one can identify the victim. Join me. Perhaps you may be able to help solve this very unusual mystery.
This one is not easy because the parts, like I said, are blurred. So I'm having to kind of guess where they all are.
On a warm spring day in 1967, Mary Urick of Houston, Texas, was on her way to visit her sister Pat, as she did nearly every day. Suddenly, Mary was overcome by a feeling of dread.
The
further down the road I got, the faster I would drive, because it was just like I could feel it in my bones. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint it. And I pulled into the driveway, and her little boy, Eugene, he was in the doorway, the door wide open, and
Where's your mommy?
I knew then that something was wrong, because Pat didn't allow the children out by themselves at all. And then I found Sheila in the kitchen. She had pulled a chair up to the kitchen sink and had turned the water on. And she was just having a field day with the water and the dishes. The water was all over the counters. It went all on the floor. And I said, Sheila, where's Mama? Where's Mama? Oh, Mama's asleep.
Patricia!
I went into the bedroom, and I saw Pat laying halfway on the bed and half off. And I tried to waken her, and I could not wake him up.
I'll be right back. Get somebody. I'll be right back.
At the hospital, doctors discovered that an aneurysm was blocking the blood flow to Pat's brain. Surgery to correct the condition was risky. An artery in her neck had to be clamped off. The operation saved Pat's life, but there was an unexpected complication.
I went back to see her the next day, and she would look at me as if like, well, who are you? What are you doing here? She didn't know who I was. She didn't know her husband.
How are you feeling? You feel better now?
She didn't know anything. Everything was gone. She woke up into a different world than what she went to sleep in. Pat did not recognize her children at all. She looked at me, and she says, who are they? I said, Pat, they are your children.
Eugene, Sheila, then your mommy look pretty today. Honey, you remember these pretty babies, don't you?
Pat had to be taught everything again, even how to eat. It was all too much for her husband. He filed for divorce and was granted custody of the children. In November of 1968, a woman who had been hired to look after Pat called Mary at work. Pat had disappeared.
I immediately hung the phone up and went home and started searching for her. I went everywhere. I had really hoped that she was still in the Houston area.
6 weeks later, Pat was picked up for vagrancy nearly 700 miles away in Alabama, where she and Mary had lived when they were young.
They had found papers in her purse stating who she was, because she didn't know who she was or anything. I left that night, and I drove all night the next day and picked her up.
Do you remember how you got all the way to Alabama?
I don't know how I got here.
Darling, we were so worried about you. So we were sick worrying about you.
I'm sorry. So sorry.
I'm just glad you're all right. I'm just glad you're all right. Are you ready to go home?
Yes, I'm gonna go home.
Pat's memory never fully returned, but eventually her life took on a semblance of normality. Pat even attracted a suitor, Troy Carlton, a construction worker.
Oh, got company.
The first time I met Pat, I went by Nathan and Mary's house, her sister and brother-in-law.
Howdy, folks.
And I walked in, and there was Pat.
Fine. Come here. I want to introduce you to my sister-in-law. Okay. Troy Carlton. It's Patricia Snyder. Patricia, this is my good friend, Troy.
Howdy. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
I made some kind of remark about it being recess in heaven with angels running around there, and next thing you know, we were dating.
Would you like something to drink, Troy? Lemonade?
Sure, that sounds wonderful. Hey, put your chair.
All right,
Put
thank
you
you.
right here, next to the angel.
It was a magnetism between us. When I first met Pat, I was unaware totally of any medical problems. When I
call it now,
was
everyone.
made aware of the fact that she had
Thank
these
you so
problems,
much for joining us, and I will be live later on, so I shall see you guys then. Lots of love to you all. Take care now. Bye.